Any explanation or vote on the outcome document shall be incorporated into national statements instead of being made at the opening segment. Furthermore, as indicated in the letter from the President of the General Assembly, dated 4th September 2024, Member States are encouraged to use the debate on Agenda Item 123, scheduled for 7th October 2024, to put on record any further views on the elements of the Pact for the Future, the Global Digital Compact, and the Declaration on Future Generations. The Assembly will now take a decision on draft Resolution A/79/L2 entitled The Pact for the Future. May I take it that the Assembly decides to adopt draft Resolution A/79/L2? It is so decided. I would like to express my sincere thanks to Her Excellency Antje Liendest, Permanent Representative of Germany, and His Excellency Neville Getz, Permanent Representative of Namibia. Her Excellency Anna Karin Enestrom, Permanent Representative of Sweden. His Excellency Chola Milambo, Permanent Representative of Zambia. His Excellency Brian Wallace, Permanent Representative of Jamaica, and Her Excellency Yorka Brandt, Permanent Representative of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, who ably and patiently conducted discussions and complex negotiations on the Pact for the Future, the Global Digital Compact, and the Declaration on Future Generations. I also express my sincere thanks to His Excellency Thomas Zarneysen, Chargé d'Affaires ad interim of the Permanent Mission of Germany, for his work in the final stage of the process. Finally, I wish to recognize the hard work of the teams that supported the 6 co-facilitators over multiple sessions, including Agnes Julin, Audrey Gatana Namases, Cornelia Jarash, Ernst Royder Marcel, Jan Bush, Johan Shekeni, Julia Fielding, Marcus Kreft, Moses Jere, Regelia Voges, Sevelina Ashipal, Tilman Scherf, Yannick Da Costa, and many more. I am sure members of the Assembly will join me in extending to them our sincere appreciation. Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, we gather today representing the peoples of the world, united by our shared aspirations for the future. Our future is in our hands. We have the power to make important choices for the future. We stand at crossroads of global transformation, facing unprecedented challenges that demand urgent collective action. From conflict and climate change to the digital divide, from inequalities to threats against human rights, together we all face profound challenges. Yet, alongside these challenges, there is hope. There is hope because challenges come along with opportunities. The opportunity for renewal, innovation, and global cooperation is within reach. Our Summit of the Future has given us a pact. The Pact for the Future just adopted represents our pledge not only to address immediate crises, but lay the foundations for a sustainable, just, and peaceful global order for all peoples and nations. The commitments embodied in the Pact and its annexes reflect the collective will of member states and must guide our actions and encourage us to promote international peace and security, invigorate implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, foster just and inclusive societies, and ensure that technologies always serve the common good of humankind. We must move forward together in a spirit of solidarity and multilateral cooperation. The Summit of the Future is a call to action. We must shape our future to protect ourselves and our planet Earth. Action that recommits us to the principles of international law, the goals of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and the promise of the United Nations Charter to save future generations from the pain of war. The path we choose must lead to a future where human dignity is respected and human rights are upheld. A future where peace transcends the mere absence of conflict and is grounded in justice, inclusion, and equity. Excellencies, our mission is to eradicate poverty in all its forms, tackle inequalities, and promote peace and security, tolerance, and respect for diversity. The summit offers a historic opportunity to ensure that progress is shared equitably across all nations and communities elsewhere. We have an obligation to harness the power of science, technology, and innovation in order to prepare the future of humankind. It is also important that we reproduce our human successes across generations all the time. Let us continue our efforts to reform and strengthen global institutions that support peace, security, sustainable development, and financial stability. Meaningful progress requires that all voices are heard and that all nations, regardless of size or wealth, have a seat at the table. The United Nations is the organization where all nations have a seat at the table. Throughout, we must recognize that none of our goals will be achieved without the full participation of women and girls. Advancing gender equality across all sectors of society will be of decisive significance. Equally, we must acknowledge the vital role of young people in shaping our future, ensuring their voices are heard, their rights protected, and their potential realized. Our youth are the torchbearers of tomorrow. This is especially true in Africa, where more young people will enter the workforce each year than in the rest of the world combined. Together, let us rise to this moment with courage and determination as we accelerate our journey towards a brighter future for everyone, everywhere. I thank you. I now give the floor to His Excellency António Guterres, the Secretary-General of the United Nations.
Mr. President of the General Assembly, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Summit of the Future. I thank the co-facilitators, the former and current presidents of the General Assembly and all member states for their strong engagement, creativity and spirit of compromise, and all my colleagues for their invaluable efforts over the past 3 years. We are here to bring multilateralism back from the brink. I called for this summit to consider deep reforms to make global institutions more legitimate, fair and effective based on the values of the UN Charter. I called for this summit because 21st century challenges require 21st century solutions, frameworks that are networked and inclusive and that draw on the expertise of all of humanity. I called for this summit because our world is heading off the rails and we need tough decisions to get back on track. Conflicts are raging and multiplying, from the Middle East to Ukraine and Sudan with no end in sight. Our collective security system is threatened by geopolitical divides, nuclear posturing, and the development of new weapons and theaters of war. Resources that could bring opportunities and hope are invested in death and destruction. Huge inequalities are a brake on sustainable development. Many developing countries are drowning in debt and unable to support their people. And we have no effective global response to emerging, complex, and even existential threats. The climate crisis is destroying lives, devastating communities, and ravaging economies. And we all know the solution: a just phase out of fossil fuels, and yet emissions are still rising. New technologies, including AI, are being developed in a moral and legal vacuum without governance or guardrails. And in short, our multilateral tools and institutions are unable to respond effectively to today's political, economic, environmental, and technological challenges. And tomorrow's will be even more difficult and even more dangerous. When the United Nations was established nearly 8 years ago, it had 51 member states. Today they are 193. The global economy was less than 1/12 of its current size. As a result, our peace and security tools and institutions and our global financial architecture reflect a bygone era. The United Nations Security Council is outdated, and its authority is eroding. And unless its composition and working methods are reformed, it will eventually lose all credibility. The international financial architecture was established when many of today's developing countries were under colonial rule. It does not represent the realities of today's global economy and is no longer able to resolve economic challenges, debt, climate action, sustainable development. It does not provide the global safety net that developing countries need. Meanwhile, technology, geopolitics, and globalization have transformed power relations. Our world is going through a time and turbulence and a period of transition. But we cannot wait for perfect conditions. We must take the first decisive steps towards updating and reforming international cooperation and make it more networked, more fair, and more inclusive now. And today, thanks to your efforts, we have. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Pact for the Future, the Global Digital Compact, and the Declaration on Future Generations open pathways to new possibilities and opportunities. On peace and security, they promise a breakthrough on reforms to make the Security Council more reflective of today's world, addressing the historic underrepresentation of Africa, Asia-Pacific, and Latin America. They lay the foundations for a more agile peace-building commission and for a fundamental review of peace operations to make them fit for the conditions they face. They represent the first agreed multilateral support for nuclear disarmament in more than a decade. They recognize the changing nature of conflict and commit to steps to prevent an arms race in outer space and to govern the use of lethal autonomous weapons. They include measures to mount an immediate and coordinated response to complex global shocks. On sustainable development, these agreements represent major progress towards groundbreaking reforms of the international financial architecture. They will help to make its institutions more representative of today's world, capable of mounting a stronger response to today's challenges, and able to provide an effective global safety net for developing countries at a time when many of them are suffocating in debt and unable to make progress on the SDGs. The Pact for the Future is about turbocharging the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement, accelerating a just transition away from fossil fuels, and securing a peaceful and livable future for everyone on our planet. It includes a groundbreaking commitment by governments to listen to young people and include them in decision-making at the national and global levels. And it commits to stronger partnerships with civil society, the private sector, local and regional authorities, and more. The Global Digital Compact is based on the principle that technology should benefit everyone. It includes the first truly universal agreement on the international governance of artificial intelligence. It commits governments to establishing an independent international scientific panel on AI and initiating a global dialogue on its governance within the United Nations. The Global Digital Compact represents the first collective effort to reach agreed interoperability standards essential for consistent measurement. And it supports networks and partnerships to build capacity on AI in developing countries. And the Declaration on Future Generations echoes the call of the United Nations Charter to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, committing governments for the first time to taking the interest of our descendants into account in decisions we take today. Respect for human rights, cultural diversity, and gender equality are woven into all three agreements. In the face of a surge in misogyny and the rollback of women's reproductive rights, governments have explicitly committed to removing the legal, social, and economic barriers that prevent women and girls from fulfilling their potential in every sphere.
Excellencies,
je salue les trois accords
I welcome these three historic
qui marquent un
agreements
tournant vers un
which mark a
multilatéralisme
shift
plus
toward a
efficace,
multilateralism that is more
plus
effective,
inclusif
more inclusive,
et
and that
fonctionnant
is more
plus en réseau.
network-based in its functioning.
Je me suis battu
I
pour
fought
les
for
idées
the ideas
portées par ces
contained in these
accords
agreements since the
depuis le
very
tout premier
first
jour
day
de mon mandat.
of my mandate.
Et je
And I
serai
will be
pleinement
totally
engagé
committed
dans leur
to
mise
their
en œuvre
implementation
jusqu'au tout dernier
until
jour.
the very last day.
Nous avons ouvert la porte.
We have
Il
unlocked
nous
the
incombe
door. Now
désormais
it is
à
our common
toutes et à tous de la
responsibility
franchir,
to walk through it.
car il ne s'agit pas seulement
That
de s'entendre,
requires not
aussi
just
d'agir.
agreement, but action.
Et aujourd'hui, je vous mets au défi de
I
passer à
challenge you
l'action,
to take that
de mettre
action,
en
to
œuvre le
implement the
pacte
pact
pour
for the
l'avenir
future by
en privilégiant le
prioritizing
dialogue et la
dialogue and
négociation,
negotiation,
en mettant fin aux guerres qui
ending
déchirent
the
le
wars
monde
that are tearing
et en
our
réformant
world
la
apart and
composition
reforming the
et les méthodes de
composition and
travail
working
du
methods
Conseil de
of the
sécurité.
Security Council.
D'accélérer
To
la
accelerate
réforme du
reforms
système
of
financier
the international
international,
financial system,
notamment à l'occasion de la
including at
conférence
next year's
sur le
conference
financement
on
du
financing for
développement
development.
qui se tiendra l'année prochaine. De placer les
To
nouvelles
put
technologies au
humanity's
service de
best
l'intérêt
interests
supérieur
at
de
the front and
l'humanité.
center of new
Ce qui
technologies.
détermine notre succès ou échec,
Our success or
ce n'est
failure
pas l'adoption d'accords,
hinges not on the
mais bien
adoption of
nos
agreements,
actions et leur impact
but on our
sur la vie
actions
des
and their
populations
impact
que
on
nous
the
servons.
lives of the people that we serve.
Excellences,
Excellencies,
tout au long de ma vie,
throughout my life,
que ce soit en tant que
whether as an
militant politique
activist
ou aux Nations
or at the
Unies,
United Nations,
j'ai appris
I
que
have
les gens
learned
ne sont
that
jamais
people
d'accord sur le
never
passé.
agree on the past.
Pour rétablir la
To
confiance,
rebuild
nous
trust,
devons
we must
partir du
start
présent
from the
et regarder
present
vers
and
l'avenir.
look toward the future.
Et partout dans le monde, les
Throughout
gens
the world,
aspirent à la
people
paix,
are hoping
à
for
la
a future
dignité
of
et à la
peace,
prospérité.
dignity, and
Ils
prosperity.
réclament une
They're
mobilisation
crying out
mondiale
for global
pour
action
régler la
to
crise
solve
climatique,
the climate crisis,
lutter contre les
tackle
inégalités
inequality,
et faire face aux
and
risques
address new
nouveaux
and
et
emerging
émergents
risks
qui
that
menacent
threaten
l'humanité.
everyone.
Et ils considèrent
And
que
they
l'ONU
see
est
the United
indispensable
Nations
pour
as being
résoudre ces
essential to
défis.
solving these
Tout
challenges.
cela a été
All
confirmé
this was confirmed
pendant les 2 journées
during the past
d'action
2
inspirantes qui
inspirational
viennent de se
action
dérouler.
days.
Le sommet de
The summit
l'avenir
of the
trace
future
la
sets
voie
a
pour une
course
coopération
toward
internationale
international
qui soit à la
cooperation that
hauteur
can
de leurs
meet
attentes,
their expectations.
alors que nous franchissons ensemble cette
Now we're
première
taking
étape
these first
cruciale.
important steps
Je
together
tiens à
and I
féliciter tous les
congratulate
États
all
membres
member states
pour leur
for
contribution.
playing their part.
Maintenant,
Now,
mettons-nous au travail
let's get
et
to
je vous
work.
remercie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I thank the Secretary General. In accordance with Resolution 76/307, we will now hear from youth representatives. I now give the floor to Mr. Ghanim Mohammed Al Mufta from Qatar.
Thank you. Oh, it's falling down.
There we go. Is this okay?
Yes. Thank you, Honorable Chair, distinguished delegates, and special guests. I am Ghanem Al-Muftah, a UN youth representative from Qatar and a political science graduate with a noteworthy passion for global rights for all. I am honored to meet you leaders, head of states, and individuals in high positions at the Summit of the Future. If you allow me, I will share some personal insights with you, but not as leaders, but as fathers, mothers, and guardians, family-focused people who care deeply about the future of all children and the generations that follow. The decisions that we make today are not just about policies and strategies. They are about shaping a world where all children can thrive in an inclusive, safe, and sustainable future. I am a perfect example of my parents' dreams for me 22 years ago. I stand before you here today, proudly representing hope from yesterday's dreams, which will continue to carry me to my future. I have been raised with strong family values, where our home model was built on believing in yourself to manifest confidence for your future. As a person with disability, I have learned that true progress comes not from overcoming personal challenges alone, but from how we, as a society, embrace each other's differences. As I look around the room, I don't see anyone else like me. But you have accepted my differences without prejudice, gender, nationality, race, or religion. You have accepted all of me. This must be the way we conduct our tomorrow, where inclusivity is a fundamental right, not a luxury, where every individual can contribute to the common good of the future, no matter our differences. It is my destiny to be born with disability. I chose to accept it. But sadly, there is no choice for children where wars and conflicts cause unnecessary injuries and lifelong disabilities. The future for these children and families can tear away hope. 22 years ago, when my mother was told that I was hopeless and going to die, she only listened to her heart. She wrote a book, I Am Here. 22 years later, I'm still here, sharing my life experiences to lend others hope and to give a voice to the unheard. There are more than 1 billion people with disabilities around the world. If they allow me, I unite with them to say, we raise our voices to stop these unexpected disabilities worldwide where peace is unseen. It is in our hands to stop this global trend of violences in Gaza and around the world. We must end the suffering today so that a clearer tomorrow can be seen. We are all leaders here. A leader's role is to listen to the people. We must understand what the people want and address their voices through platforms like this to drive meaningful change. The future belongs to our youth. We must ensure that they are prepared to take on leadership roles in order to be the change makers. You must be the change you wish to see in this world. I wish all distinguished delegates and special guests a successful summit as we move forward to a new day of possibilities. Thank you so much.
I thank Mr. Al-Mufta. I now give the floor to Ms. Niria Alicia Garcia from the United States.
Tonansin, way tonansin, way tonansin, tonansin, way tonansin. With the permission of the Creator, the Lenape ancestors of these lands, and with the permission of your hearts, it is an honor to address you today, my dear relatives. First and foremost, I want to give thanks to the spirit world, to Father Sun, to Mother Earth, gratitude to the plants and animals, the sacred waters, the sacred places who gave humanity the sacred knowledge and understanding that made it possible for us to coexist in balance with creation, for thousands of years. I bow to you and your ancestors because we all descend from these good people who walked on Mother Earth in a good way. And I'm calling on them today for guidance. Why? Because our Mother Earth is hurting and she needs our help. Worldwide, our waters and sacred places are being desecrated. Corporate greed and war are pushing life to the verge of extinction. Global governments and politics are void of spirituality, of morality, and basic respect for life. My generation's hearts are breaking as we survive the impacts of climate disaster that could have been prevented. Breaking as we watch genocide of our Palestinian relatives live on our phones, despite the global call for a ceasefire. The Pact for the Future mentions words like sustainable development nearly 300 times, yet words like children, earth, and future generations are mentioned less than 60 times. This is green colonialism, and it needs to stop. Only one mention of local communities, 0 mentions of plants and animals, 0 mentions of frontline communities, and 0 mentions of Indigenous rights. So I ask you today, do Indigenous people still not exist to you? Are we not the stewards of 80% of the world's biodiversity? My relatives, I guarantee you that the continued exclusion of Indigenous people, local and frontline communities, will inevitably lead to more destruction, pain, and suffering. Yet there is hope, because we are still here, and the world needs the leadership of Indigenous people and of youth now more than ever. Collectively, we have the ancestral technologies, Indigenous knowledges, and spiritualities to create real intergenerational solutions. Our cosmologies have the wisdom and power to guide humanity towards that good path again. But in order to do that, Indigenous people must have equal representations as member states in all UN bodies. So I say to you today, global leaders, go home and ratify the United Nations declarations on the rights of Indigenous people. Acknowledge and apologize and build authentic relationships with your Indigenous people. Begin to meaningfully engage your youth. Go home and cut your military budgets and allocate those funds for climate solutions, to pay reparations, to pay for losses and damages we've experienced as a generation that is inheriting a devastated Mother Earth. Go home and ask your Indigenous youth, respected elders, how much money we need to bring our solutions to life. And then go home and create the unrestricted funds to support Indigenous people in implementing the Sustainable Development Goals on our terms. Global leaders, go home and give Indigenous people our land back. To my Indigenous youth and children of the world, we are so desperately needed at this time. We must join forces with our respected elders and keep fighting for a livable future. Our generation's biggest responsibility in these times is to not give up and not give in to hopelessness. We must stand to protect the sacred. We must stand to protect our sacred fires, our ceremonies, our songs, our prayers. We must speak our language, wear our traditional clothes, and be proud of who we are. Make no mistake that we have the medicine that this world needs, and that with the help of creation, we will turn the tide for good for the next 7 generations of all life forms to come. Tlaso kamati, o meteo.
I thank Ms. Garcia. I now give the floor to Ms. Monica Malit from South Sudan.
Esteemed world leaders, excellencies, and distinguished guests, I am Monica Malit. It is both an honor and a privilege to address you today at the opening of the Summit of the Future. As I begin, my question to everyone today is, What encounters your eyes if you talk about the future? What voices overwhelms your ears? What test lies in your tongue? Of hope, of action, of collaboration, of inclusion, or of transformation. Our world is at crossroads, confronted by uncertainties and challenges that cross borders, regions, and communities. Among the most pressing issues are the escalating refugee crisis. If left unaddressed, this will destabilize societies, hinder growth, and sow divisions. Reflecting on my own experiences, living South Sudan with only one language to speak, I had to struggle in a class with people who were 3 years in class before me. Kenya, a land of refuge, turned to be a land of where I thrived. Through the gates of education, it's opened its heart. The University of Nairobi gave me a chance to rise, to lead, and to speak for the voiceless. Not just as a student, but as a student's president. A refugee crowned with the trust of a nation, my journey, not just of books and lectures, but of forging a future where the silent speak. With the right resources, I secured the Albert Einstein German Scholarship. The support of UNHCR and Kenya granted me access to education, to thrive, to pursue knowledge, and turn dreams into tangible realities. Now, the weight of my law degree, I stand as a voice for the youth, for the refugees, and for all those forgotten. Through my journey, I learned that it is not enough to receive degrees. We need to exemplify leadership for us to thrive. And we lose it out when we let the youth and the refugees especially go unnoticed, unsupported, and unchampioned for. The flight of refugees underscores our collective responsibilities. Individuals like me, displaced by conflict, environmental disasters, and economic uncertainties, seek refuge, security, and a chance for a better life, not to be pitied. It is our collective duty to provide not just immediate assistance, but also long-term, compassionate solutions that uphold the dignity of refugees and enable their meaningful contribution to the society. Education remains a powerful tool for progress regardless of the constant cut down in education funding across the world. It equips individuals with the skills and knowledge to navigate a complex world with limited opportunities. For developing nations and emerging economies, investing in education is crucial for sustainable growth. We must ensure that education is accessible, equitable, and aligned with the future workforce demands. And for this, I want governments and key stakeholders in the education sector to think big on funding for education. In a world where world leaders openly make negative comments about refugees, none of us chose to be a refugee, and anyone can become a refugee. Without peace, there can be no safety nor development. Without security, there can be no stability. Without stability, education falters and nations fail. As we embark on this journey, let's envision a world and a future where it is shaped by cooperations, understanding, and shared purpose. Let today mark the beginning of a deeper collaboration, stronger institutions, and renewed commitment to creating a world where every individual has the opportunity to thrive. And to our world leaders, I'm very grateful that I have a chance to stand before you today and address you directly. The gaps are growing wider. The structures are rusting. While you talk of reforms, our future deliberations must not be rehearsed platitudes, but revolutions of thoughts. This summit, this moment, it is supposed to mend the fractures in our trust, to build a future where cooperation thrives. And to the youth, the future is ours to forge, not theirs to cling to, not theirs to pass down like spoils of war, because there are those who went for the war but were left in the war. It belongs to the bold, those who speak, even when silence is expected. It belongs to those who demand more justice, more equity, and more humanity. Thank you so much.
I thank Ms. Malith. In accordance with Decision 78/564B, the opening segment also features statements by the President of the Republic of Namibia and the Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany in lieu of the national statements from the plenary list of speakers. I invite His Excellency Olaf Scholz, Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany, to address the Assembly.
Mr. President, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank all the previous speakers, especially the youth representatives, for their important input. It is for them, the youth around the world, that we have come together today. It is about their hopes for a better world. It's about their future. A special word of gratitude goes to you, Mr. President. Your leadership has proven of vital importance. At a time of great tension and uncertainty, we need the pact for the future more than ever. The previous speakers have already explained how deeply our fates are linked by the global challenges we are facing. War, climate change, poverty and hunger, impediments to free and fair trade, global health threats, technological developments such as AI, which, as well as huge opportunities, also harbor the potential for abuse and for exacerbating economic imbalances. The pact does not just acknowledge these challenges. It expresses our commitment to confronting them, not alone, not one by one, but together, East and West, North and South. The Pact for the Future can serve as a compass for us, a compass whose needle points towards more cooperation and partnership instead of towards more conflict and fragmentations. A compass guiding us to a more just, inclusive and cooperative world. The Pact shows our determination to restore trust in our common institutions. It shows that all the talk of division, polarization and uncertainty will not be the end of the story of the United Nations. Because we still cooperate. We are still placing trust in one another. We are still committed to the principles of the Charter. And we are still willing to treat each other with respect and fairness. Respect and fairness, these principles have also been guiding us, Namibia and Germany, as co-facilitators of this pact. We come from different continents. Our political and socio-economic situations differ. And yet we manage to work together as friends. Thank you, President Mbumba, for your friendship and for the excellent cooperation. I also wish to thank everyone who helped us to carry the negotiations so far. The text before us today is the achievement of the countless men and women who overcome fatigue, the occasional feeling of frustration, political and ideological divides to achieve this global consensus today. You have proved that multilateralism is alive, that we can find common ground. Let's take steps towards a world that is safe, just, equal, inclusive, sustainable, prosperous, and above all, peaceful. The pact outlines what those steps are, over 50 of them. Not only history would judge us if we didn't take them, but also young people around the world. The road is rocky, but what was that ever any different? Germany will extend its hand to anyone who wants to walk this road with us. Let's get moving. The future starts now. Thank you.
I thank the Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany. I invite His Excellency Nangolo Mbumba, President of the Republic of Namibia, to address the Assembly.
Your Excellency Philemon Yang, 79th President of the General Assembly, Your Excellency António Guterres, UN Secretary-General, Excellencies, Your Excellency Olaf Scholz, Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany, representative of the youth, distinguished delegates. Today we gathered at this Summit of the Future to adopt, and which we have done already, a pact for the future, which our countries painstakingly negotiated over the past 18 months. We all are differently impacted by the weight of this historic moment for our global community under the United Nations. There is an African proverb that says, and I quote, "Tomorrow belongs to the people who plan for it today." End of quote. The Summit of the Future is a pivotal moment in our quest to shape a brighter, more just, sustainable, and peaceful common future for all humanity. It is a further commitment to bequeath to the current and future generations a world at peace with itself, a world in which all countries and peoples are prosperous, and a world that is more loving, more inclusive, and tolerant. At this critical juncture, the scale and degree of compounding challenges of poverty, hunger, climate change, economic inequality, conflict, and public health crisis may seem unsurmountable. However, this summit equally presents a historic opportunity for the nations of the world to combine their strength and resources and confront this crisis head-on. Today, the world is at a crossroad. One path leads to an environmental catastrophe, widening inequality, global conflict and destruction, and the rise of dangerous technologies that threaten our security and civil liberties. The other path offers hope. Hope for climate change, global peace, the eradication of poverty and hunger, and the responsible harnessing of digital technologies for the benefit of all humanity. Therefore, the Summit of the Future is a timely and urgent call to action, urging us to choose the path of peace, prosperity, and sustainable development for all. The world of 1945, when the United Nations was established in San Francisco to promote unity among nations under the rubric of we, the peoples, is contrastingly different from the world of 2024. So much has changed. As a result, we as leaders are once again called upon by destiny to come together and forge a brighter future for our peoples. To forge a brighter tomorrow for people and planet, we must be courageous to reform international organizations, including the United Nations and its Security Council. A new multilateralism, one that truly works, must rest on 4 key pillars of UN reform. First, the UN must empower nations and regions to adopt comprehensive pathways to provide economic opportunities and prosperity, underpinned by environmental sustainability. Second, the UN must strengthen global agreements and institutions to ensure the effective implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. Thirdly, the UN must be equipped to finance these goals through an innovative global financial architecture. Fourth, we must harness the incredible advancement in science and technology for the common good, while being ever vigilant against the misuse of innovation such as artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and geoengineering. The Pact for the Future set out key global priorities for humanity, which are sustainable development and financing, international peace and security, science, technology, and innovation, the empowerment of youth and future generations, and global governance. I extend heartfelt congratulations to the respective facilitators and all member states of the United Nations for this profound accomplishment. The Summit of the Future, under the able leadership of the permanent representatives of Germany and Namibia, has been a collective effort over the past 18 months to build consensus and restore trust, and to reinforce the principles of dialogue, cooperation, and shared responsibility. Excellencies, we need the UN because at the heart of this institution is a simple yet profound principle. Global problems require global solutions. It remains the most effective way to achieve peace, security, and prosperity. The Namibian government recognizes the profound significance of this Summit for the Future for our planet to meet the targets set forth in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Paris Agreement. Sustainable development must be our guiding principle, summarized by 5 Ps: people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. People signify our commitment to leave no one behind. Planet signifies the urgent need to live within planetary boundaries. Prosperity calls for extending the benefits of modern education and technology to all. Peace in the nuclear age requires nations to live together under international law and the UN Charter. Partnership between governments, civil society, and business are essential to achieving our shared goals. We must leave this summit with renewed commitments and concrete action plans to eradicate poverty, eliminate hunger, tackle climate change, and build a global economy that works for all. Future generations will judge us not by our words, but by our actions. Excellencies, guided by the principles of the UN Charter, we must reaffirm our commitment towards peaceful coexistence and shared development. We have the tools, the knowledge, and the opportunity to shape a better world. I am confident that together we can rise to the occasion and seize this moment in history for a brighter future that is peaceful, just, and sustainable. I thank you very much.
I thank the President of the Republic of Namibia. We have heard the last speaker for the opening segment. Before giving the floor to the first speaker on the list of speakers, delegations are reminded that statements are limited to 5 minutes for participating states and 3 minutes for other statements. Pursuant to Rule 72 of the Rules of Procedure, when a representative exceeds her or his allotted time, the President shall call the speaker to order without delay, which will be done by means of automatic microphone cutoff. In accordance with Resolution 72/313, the all protocol observed principle is recommended, whereby participants are encouraged to refrain from listing standard protocol expressions during their statements. I would like to appeal to speakers to deliver their statements at a reasonable pace so that interpretation into the other official United Nations languages may be provided properly. The list of speakers for each meeting shall be completed, and no speaker will be rolled over to the next meeting. Speakers who are not present when their speaking turn comes will be automatically moved to the next available speaking slot within their category at the same time. Finally, after the Secretary General's departure, the Secretary General's seat at the podium may be occupied by his representative. If I hear no objection, we shall proceed accordingly. It is so decided. Members are also reminded, in accordance with Resolution 76/307, 4 interactive dialogues will take place in the Trusteeship Council chamber in parallel to the plenary meetings. The first interactive dialogue has already started at 10 a.m. I invite His Excellency Julius Maada Bio, President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, to address the Assembly.
Mr. President of the General Assembly, Mr. Secretary General of the United Nations, colleagues, heads of state and government, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the G7 plus countries, a group of nations bound together by a shared history of experiencing the horrors of conflict and the challenges of fragility, but with an unwavering commitment to peace, stability, resilience, and sustainable development. This summit represents an important moment for reflection, collective action, and renewed commitment to building a sustainable, just, and equitable future. As countries deeply affected by conflict and post-conflict circumstances, we understand all too well the cost of instability. The urgency of a united global response to build a future of peace, prosperity, and justice is a shared responsibility that cannot be overstated. For us, these challenges are neither theoretical nor distant. They are the stark reality that we contend with every day. Our countries have endured and continue to endure fragility, conflict, and violence. Still, we stand here united as by a shared hope and common purpose, the pursuit of sustainable peace and development. Today, we stand at the crossroads of history. As this summit of the future has offered us an opportunity to adopt the Pact of the Future, a transformative roadmap for a more inclusive, secure, and sustainable world. This pact gives us hope and inspiration for a better future. Mr. President, allow me to put forward 6 points to help in situating the G7 plus countries in the pact for the future implementation. 1, the call for national ownership and inclusive government. The G7 plus was founded on the principle that peace and development must be driven from within. We advocate for national ownership of development processes and insist that efforts to address fragility must be grounded in dialogue, reconciliation, and inclusive governance. 2, promoting sustainable development in conflict-affected countries. The SDGs represent a shared vision for a better world. But for the G7 plus countries, progress remains hindered by persistent challenges of fragility. Sustainable development and financing for development is essential towards addressing the unique needs of fragile and conflict-affected states. Therefore, we call for increased international cooperation, innovative financing mechanisms, and tailored approaches to ensure that no country is left behind. 3, fostering international peace and security. International peace and security form the bedrock of global development. For countries recovering from conflict, achieving peace is not a singular event, but a continuous process of strengthening institutions, promoting the rule of law, and addressing the root causes.
I thank the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone. I invite His Excellency Rashad Mohammed Al-Alimi, President of the Presidential Leadership Council of the Republic of Yemen, to address the Assembly.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أصحاب الجلالة والفخامة والسمو،
Excellencies, Majesties, Your Highnesses, ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests,
إنها فرصة ثمينة.
I value this opportunity to address you today at such an important event where we together renew our joint commitment to the principles of international solidarity, mutual respect, and close cooperation. These are the principles upon which this organization was founded.
كانت رحلة اليمن خلال العقد الأخير
Yemen's experience over the past decade has been full of suffering and difficult challenges caused by the war by the Iranian terrorist Houthi militias, which have wreaked havoc and caused destruction in many aspects of life. Therefore, our priorities may seem different from those of most of your countries, especially those countries that enjoy peace and stability. However, our aspirations are unified in that we hope for a prosperous future that all of our peoples deserve. Yemen today is one of the greatest humanitarian crises in the world, and it is further hindered by the aspects of war on all aspects of its the repercussions of war on all aspects of its life, including its inability to fulfill the SDGs and achieve sustainable development. However, despite these great challenges, the Yemeni people remain steadfast and determined in their quest for a better future. The reason for this steadfastness is the result of the strength of our people, men and women, in confronting these militias, and the constant support that the Yemeni government is receiving from the coalition to support diplomacy under the leadership of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates and their regional and international partners, as well as funding organizations and agencies, especially the IMF and the World Bank. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, amidst these difficulties and these disasters, I would like to deliver to you some good news that we have witnessed recently. Our efforts have recently succeeded in contracting the international Starlink company to provide satellite internet services to our citizens, so that Yemen is one of the pioneering countries in the region in offering this service. And we are relying on this service to enhance the exchange of information and the spreading of knowledge in order for women, young women and men to achieve and receive education remotely and to prevent them from being recruited towards violence and extremism. And I wanted to tell you this because we are working on dealing with the war and creating hope, and we are doing this by working in three different aspects. First of all, we are trying to confront violence and aggressive thought and extremism. Second, we are trying to remedy the